I'm Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway, where we had a great No Kings rally. It was wildly amusing on Saturday to see the, as I said on Fox and Friends yesterday morning, the water aerobics class en masse moving from their gymnasia to the early bird special. Boy, was it an old crowd. Now, mind you, I got nothing against people on Social Security. I'll be there soon myself. I'm just saying that was an older demo. That was the demo for people who buy walk-in tubs and chairs that go upstairs. And they went to the No Kings rally. I'm good on you. It's a free country. We don't have a king. We have a First Amendment. You go demonstrate. You go, people. However, I wanted to check in with Generalissimo. Dwayne, where were you on Saturday?
I was not at a No Kings rally. I was at
direct
Disneyland.
Question. You were at Disneyland.
Yeah.
Okay. And Sunday morning?
I was at church.
Oh, that's pretty. Anybody see you there that can place you there?
Sure.
Because you did see what happened at the Louvre on Sunday, did you not?
At the Louvre.
At the Louvre.
We have an art heist, right?
We have the jewels, the crown jewels are gone.
Well,
somebody drove, and only you could do this. Somebody rolled up with 4 motorcycles and a furniture lifter to the back door, and nobody noticed it.
You can't even do the shtick right.
No.
The problem is, you always accuse my wife of having the sticky fingers.
Well, I know.
Not
It took
me.
4 people. I want to know who the other 2 were. You've got those 2 assorted somethings around the house, right?
The
and you have 4
miscellaneous
berets,
random people. Yes.
And you have 4 berets, do you not?
It couldn't have been the miscellaneous random people because let me tell you, they're not that stealthy.
Well, they didn't have to be. This was not stealthy. It's like, were all the French police off? Were they at the No Kings rally the next day in France? Did you read this story?
I kind of did glance at that story.
This story is fabulous.
It is.
They rolled up in a high lifter like a utility pole, and nobody said, "Oh, there's a lift outside the Louvre," and they've got glass cutters, and they came out with a bunch of jewels. What do you think? Anything wrong there?
It was like Die Hard 3. You know, the cops are into something. Oh, this big distraction downtown, and that's when they started doing they started doing the heist.
Well, I got to tell you, that's like a George Clooney Ocean's 24 movie, and I'm hoping they get away with it because there were no paintings involved, just jewels.
Did they do a No Kings in Paris?
I don't know.
They did one in London. That was grand. Do you think anybody wants to tell the people in England about a No Kings rally?
You know, did you manage to get the cut of me on Fox and Friends yesterday?
I did. I've got the one, yes. Cut 1 is the one yesterday. Cut 2 is the one from this morning.
Cut 2, please, Harley. It's Charlie and I talking.
That's cut 1.
Hugh Hewitt,
contributor Hugh Hewitt joins us now. Great to see you this morning, Hugh. Thank you for joining us. You know, first of all, I'm sort of confused because I think that President Trump is being a very bad king because there were all these people all over the place marching and saying nasty things about him. But I was thinking that maybe you probably feel a lot safer knowing that all of these Democrats took to the streets to prevent us from having a king.
Good morning, Charlie. I thought it was a very amusing day yesterday. There were about 100,000 is the estimate inside the Beltway where I am. And it did look like a giant water aerobics class in many of these places where people were going on their way to the early bird special. They broke it off at 4 so they could get to the early bird special. It was my generation. It was the boomers. And Woodstock was a long time ago. This was a little bit like Woodstock.
I got Charlie to laugh. When you can get a host to do an unsolicited laugh, that's pretty good. It just occurred to me, that's what it was. How many of you, Dwayne, you did water aerobics 3 times a week, don't you?
No, I'm in a hot tub 3 times a week, maybe.
Well, that counts.
Okay.
That counts. And physical therapists were on hand at the Disneyland. Did they have a No Kings at Disneyland on Saturday?
I actually did a couple.
Because they've got kings at Disneyland.
Yeah, I did a couple of posts on this on X. So my wife and I left the park, and we got to the street across the street from Disneyland, the corner, Harbor and whatever it is. And there's one woman with a little "No King" sign that she's holding in one hand, staring at her cell phone in the other, and that's it. That was her. That was it.
Have we got an age estimate?
Oh, she was probably in her 30s to 40s.
Okay, good.
But,
Look, the lunatic fringe was out.
Oh, yeah.
The lunatic fringe was out. The one percenters on the far left of the bell curve, plus the geriatrics. And
it looked like field trip day at the Villages.
Yes, and I got to tell you, I don't know what Schumer was hoping for, but when America is laughing at you, maybe you'd better open the government.
The one in New York, by the way,
yeah,
it shut down at exactly 2:00. By 2:05, they were off the clock. I mean,
well, they have to take a nap. You got to realize you got to get your nap. And look, I am not making fun of old people. I'm a boomer. All right, so I'm with you, boomers, and those of you who are older boomers, you keep marching. It's good for the circulation, keeps the diabetes away, keeps the heart rate up. You should jog a little bit, carry a sign. I'm all for it. We ought to have a No Kings rally every Saturday in the park at 11 to 12. I'm all for it.
Did you see how NBC characterized the Boston NBC News, not MSNBC, but NBC News said,
Yeah.
we like to call these people, they're elderly people, and they all have white hair. We refer to them as Q-tips.
Q-tips. I have had my wonderful white hair since I was 30, and my mom went gray at that age, so I've got nothing against white hair. I've always embraced my white hair. My look never changes, but I'm here to tell you, I'm with you all. You get out there and trundle. I've got my Relief Factor right here, and if you're feeling it, I wish I had been. If Relief Factor could sponsor the No Kings rally, it would make a lot of sense, because you get minor aches and pains as you age. You get minor aches and pains as you work out. You probably get minor aches and pains when you go to a demonstration and you bump into people. Not if you take Relief Factor. Now, I drove 7 hours on Thursday and 7 hours on Saturday, so I got some kinks in my back, but my Relief Factor goes to work. The only trouble is, there I just took it, 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF, or go to relieffactor.com. Only trouble I've had this weekend was not with minor aches and pains. I got my flu shot. And like clockwork, about halftime I got the flu shot on Saturday afternoon, like clockwork, halftime of the Browns game, and I start feeling, well, fluish. So I went and I slept for 14 hours. I'm fine today. But I'll tell you, that was a powerful flu shot. So I'm encouraging all those people who went to the No Kings rally. You probably got the flu from whoever you were standing next to. Go get your flu shot if you didn't get ahead of the curve. Now I want to get serious, and I want you to write my number down, 1-800-520-1234. That's to talk to me. I need New Yorkers to call me. You've got to vote for Andrew Cuomo. I assume, though I do not want to exclude my Democratic friends who listen, I assume most of you who are listening to me in New York City right now are registered as Republicans, maybe some independents, a few Democrats. I assume you're going to vote. Voting begins October 25th. Early voting ends on November 2nd, then you get the day off, and then on Tuesday, November 4, you vote. And I just saw a poll. Cuomo is within the margin of error if Sliwa drops out. Well, Curtis isn't going to drop out. But you don't have to drop in and vote for him. You can vote for Andrew Cuomo, and I hope you will. We are not taking this seriously enough. I want you to remember when Mark Levin was a guest on this show earlier this year when his new book on power came out. And Mark got very excited at the idea that people were making a joke about having an anti-Semitic Marxist as the mayor of New York and how that would sure show those people in New York City what being a lefty is. Look, New York is the greatest city in the world. It's 8.5 million Americans. It is the source of capital market. It leads capital markets around the world. I know that people will leave. Right now, they've got the highest income tax rate of anywhere in the world. But he wants to raise it 2% more, and it's going to break the back of New York. He'll also get to name the police commissioner, the head of New York City schools. He will be running 300,000 people work for the city of New York. That's right. You heard me right. 300,000 people work for the city of New York. He's only run a staff of between 8 and 12. That's the average legislative office in New York. Been an assemblyman for 6 years. To my knowledge, he's never had a job other than being an assemblyman. You cannot do this to yourself, New York. I know Andrew Cuomo's not my ideal candidate either, but Curtis cannot win. There's only 11% Republican registration in the city. Vote for Cuomo. My number is 1-800-520-1234. New Yorkers only, and only if you live in the city and can vote. 1-800-520-1234. Give me a call. Roy is calling from Connecticut. Now, Roy, I wanted to talk to New Yorkers, not the Connecticut people. You're screwed anyway. You live in Connecticut.
I work in New York.
Well, working there doesn't let you vote there.
I work in Manhattan, but I'm going to be affected anyway.
Yeah, but you don't vote there. I can't turn you into a Cuomo voter. Are you working hard to get Cuomo elected?
Well, it's a tricky situation.
Why? It's not even close.
Because
Curtis can't win, and
No.
Mondami is a Marxist anti-Semite.
yeah, but Como is not. Como has his chances.
Hey, look, Cuomo's not my favorite guy. He was terrible during COVID, and he's just a big spending, big government Democrat. But you got to run the city. It's a complicated place. He's run big things. He's run HUD. I think he's run the state of New York badly, but at least he ran it. He's got some people to hire. He knows what he's looking for. I think he knows how to run a police department better than this guy. This guy ran he's got 8 people working for him, maybe 10 in his legislative office. Do you think he has any idea how to run New York? He couldn't run a bodega in New York.
But he's not going to run it by himself.
Well, I'll tell you what. You don't live there, so I appreciate the call. Thank you for calling. He's not going to run it by himself. He's going to get every Marxist within 100 miles of there. I don't have any callers from New York, and Connecticut's not close enough, Harley. 1-800-520-1234. I did this last week with my friends Kevin McCullough and a bunch of local guys, and we had Gallagher on and Joe Piscopo. And Gallagher and Joe and Kevin are saying, what if Curtis runs up the middle? What? So I finally did all the work this weekend. 11% of New York city voters who are registered, 11% are Republicans. So, Curtis ran for mayor 4 years ago against our incumbent genius, Eric, and Eric crushed him. Curtis got 312,000 votes against Eric Adams. He's going to finish last, dead last. You're throwing your vote away. A vote for Curtis is a vote for Mamdani. And if you don't have any idea how bad Mamdani can be, take a look at Cuba. Now, I want to thank Kurt Schlichter, who sat in for me on Thursday and Friday. I did my at least annual visit to a college to see how crazy they have been. And I was on a panel at Hobart and William Smith College in upstate New York with Ruth Marcus of The New Yorker and Bill Whitaker of 60 Minutes on the courts and the judiciary. And beforehand, I had a group of students. One of them is a big Mamdani supporter. And if you're listening, Hudson, loved you. Good luck with the free buses. Because I looked at him and I said, what do you want? What do you think you're getting? And he said to me, free buses. And, anything that's free isn't really free. Something else is paying for it. The gasoline's not free. The tires aren't free. The driver's not free. So it's not a free bus. So the question is, who's paying for the bus? All right, now I guess they don't teach economics anymore, or Hudson didn't take any economics. Who's paying for the bus? The wheels on the bus go round and round. Who puts the wheels on the bus? Who takes care of the engine? Who watches the bus yard at night? Who builds the fence around the bus yard? Who changes the oil? All these different things. No bus is free. They're never free. They're often empty, but they're never free. And so who's paying for that? Taxpayers. All right, so you've already got the world's highest tax rate, or America's highest tax rate. There are confiscatory tax policies in socialist and communist countries. But New York City is the highest tax rate in the United States. So if you want to raise taxes, and I believe that's what my young friend said, we can raise taxes on the wealthy. I don't think you're going to get enough to run the buses. But if you did, those people who are now paying, they're paying, I think, 16% right now, or it's going to go to 16, and they're paying 14.8% right now. It's going to go to 16.8% if Mamdani gets his way. At what point do they leave? There are a lot of nice cities in the United States. Miami Beach has become a banking capital. Dallas has become a banking capital. You don't have to move to LA. You don't have to go to another blue state. You can go to a red state. At what point do people say enough is enough and leave? Because capital is mobile. That day is the day that Mamdani gets sworn in. And I just want you to understand, you're on a budget, the city's on a budget, the state's on a budget. Mamdani will blow through that budget, and then they'll lay off cops. And when they lay off cops, what happens? Crime goes up. You have a visible police presence in a city that never sleeps, or the people that never sleep will be the criminals. So right now, just think about it. You don't want to live with this guy as your mayor. Tom in Manhattan. Hi, Tom.
Hello, Hugh. How are you?
I'm great. Who are you going to vote for?
I am going to vote for Curtis once again because I'd like you to answer this question. Which is worse, the fear that you know of, which is Cuomo, or the fear that you don't know of, which is Mamdani?
Well, I'll answer that, but first I want you to recognize Mamdani will win unless Republicans vote for him. Am I not correct?
Do you think every Republican is going
Wait, I'll answer your question, but we can't stack the questions. I'm just asking if I will answer your question, but do you realize that Mamdani will win if Republicans don't vote for Cuomo?
Of course I do. Now
Okay,
it's your turn to
and my turn is, I fear what I actually know, which is what a communist anti-Semite will do to New York City, which is make it unlivable. I've only lived there once. I lived there. How long have you been there, Tom?
30 years, sir.
All right, so I was there before you got there. I lived there in 1980. It was a nightmare. Absolute.
I was here during the 70s also. Yes, I know what it's like.
So you know what it's going to go back to, only worse.
Listen, we made it through de Blasio.
No, de Blasio had at least been a city councilor. He had at least been the public advocate. He at least knew where the bathroom. If you don't believe me on ideology, this guy has only run an office with 10 people in it.
Sir, I rest my case. We've been through hell already. When you
No.
Just keep going.
Oh gosh, oh my gosh! Please rethink it. You don't. Which part of the city you live in, by the way?
I'm in Manhattan, Upper East Side.
Upper East Side. Okay, say goodbye to the train service, because that's the first thing. The Upper East Side is where the Republicans live, right? You aren't going to get.
Ride a bicycle,
Well, you're not going to get a trash pickup either. It'll be like the trash strike without a strike. First people to get screwed is the Upper East Side. You know that, don't you?
Of course.
So you're still going to vote for Curtis. I don't understand it. Cuomo is bad. I get it.
I can't pull the lever for the Democrat or the Independent.
Do you have kids? Do you have kids?
I do. One is an alumnus of Chapman University.
Oh, good choice. So you've watched over them very closely. So they're never gonna come visit you in the crime-infested, disease-ridden, falling apart infrastructure city of New York if you elect Mamdani? Think about that. You'll never see your grandkids if you vote for Mamdani. That's my new slogan for the oldsters up there. Thank you much, Tom. Coming right back, America. Stay tuned. Vote for Cuomo. As you just heard Dwayne's voiceover as we were going to commercial, one of the sponsors of the Hugh Hewitt Show are conservatives for lower healthcare costs, and that's at pharmawindfall.com. I'd like you to go to pharmawindfall.com. Whenever the government reopens, they're going to get to the appropriations process. When they get to the appropriations process, Big Pharma is going to write in like they did during Obamacare, like they did during COVID, and they're going to ask for billions of your dollars to go to them. We do not want pharma to get another windfall. We want free markets. We want accountability for the dollars. We want you to help Republicans and conservatives sign up at pharmawindfall.com, because we don't want another one. Now, I take my hat off to the lobbyists who work for Big Pharma. They're much better than the lobbyists who work for Big Tech. They're much better than the lobbyists who work for defense. They're much better than the lobbyists who work for Big Tech. The pharma lobby is the best in the world. They never sleep. The government might shut down, but Big Pharma's lobbyists are camped on the steps of the Congress on the chance that someone shows up there and tries to go to work at their office. They'll grab them and start asking for money. But we don't want that to happen again. Big Pharma wants government mandates. They want kickbacks for every reduction in price that they give. Donald Trump is winning. He is taking care of them. He's pushing them back, but you got to help him. pharmawindfall.com. Go there, join up, and stop it. Big Pharma wants to block generics. They want to keep prices high. They manipulate patents. I've been teaching law students about how to manipulate patents in the number of years that you have patent protection, how to manipulate it. For decades, there's no reason that Big Pharma needs to get exclusivity for 20 or 30 years by manipulating a drug. Stop them. pharmawindfall.com. In the same coalition is Americans for Free Markets. forfreemarkets.com. FORfreemarkets.com. It's another sponsor of the Hugh Hewitt Show. They have been with me for a few months now. I love these people. They're all about driving marketplace ideology into all parts of government. They want, when the government reopens, and it ought to be this week, John Thune will bring it up for another vote sometime this week, I would hope, because I think they've picked up at least Gene Shaheen out of New Hampshire, maybe John Ossoff out of Georgia, because Georgia is beginning to figure out that people are losing their ability to work as federal contractors. Federal employees at the air traffic controller station there at Big Airport Atlanta are not getting paid because of Chuck Schumer, the Schumer shutdown, and the No Kings rally. So John Ossoff's in trouble. He might come over as well. We've already got John Fetterman, Cortez Masto out of Nevada, Angus King, who always makes a lot of sense, is going to be there as well. We need to provide services based upon market demand and not based upon made-up demand. We need free markets to set the demand signal, not what some lobbyist believes. So it's the same kind. I always take my sponsors in the same market. I'm not an economist, didn't stay at a Holiday Inn. I just know markets work. Boy, I tried to explain this to the kids up at college for 2 hours, and only one of them got it. One of the kids actually said they wanted healthcare like Cuba. And I knew one thing about Cuba, which is their infant mortality rates about a third is greater than ours is. And of course, they sometimes don't have power in Cuba. But you would think this was news. Well, it was news to him, but you have to wonder, what do they teach students these days about what life is like in genuinely socialist states like Venezuela and Cuba, and genuinely totalitarian socialist states like the aforementioned Cuba and Venezuela, and then the worst of the worst, North Korea? Don't they have any idea? How do you keep the United States strong? You keep the United States strong with free markets. So please head to forfreemarkets.com, forfreemarkets.com, and get into the game. When I come back, we're going to try again. We lost my call screener there, 1-800-520-1234. If you're a Republican in New York City and you're voting for Curtis, at least give me a chance to talk you out of it. It's a bad idea. You got to vote for Andrew Cuomo. I know that sounds crazy, right? I'm a conservative. I've never voted for a Democrat for any national office in the general election ever in my life. Never. I voted for Bernie Sanders in the 2020 presidential primary in Virginia because I'm a Virginian and the only ballot that had anything on it. And I thought, well, Bernie really is the Democrat. I had no idea how much he really was the Democrat. Please give me a call, 1-800-520-1234 in New York City. You don't want everything to stop working, especially not the police and fire departments. And that's what you're going to get with Comrade Mamdani. 1-800-520-1234 connects you to the Hugh Hewitt Show. Donald Trump held a cabinet meeting today to welcome Australia's Prime Minister. And he had a gaggle, of course, most accessible president in history. Talked about Ukraine first, cut number 3.
Over here, please.
Mr. President, on the war that you haven't solved yet, the Ukraine-Russia situation, have you now locked in a meeting? And can you explain, just a few weeks ago at UNGA, you said that Ukraine could possibly win the war and
well, they could.
Territory, but now
they could still win it. I don't think they will, but they could still win it. I never said they would win it. I said they could win. Anything can happen. You know, war is a very strange thing. A lot of bad things happen. A lot of good things happen.
He's right. You cannot really predict war. He then went on to predict what's going to happen to Hamas if they break the ceasefire again, as they did on Saturday, killing 2 IDF soldiers. Israel retaliated. President said this about Hamas today, cut number 4.
You know, we have 59 countries that agreed to the deal. We have a peace in the Middle East for the first time ever. We made a deal with Hamas that, you know, they're going to be very good, they're going to behave, they're going to be nice, and if they're not, we're going to go in, we're going to eradicate them if we have to. They'll be eradicated, and they know that. So they went in, and I don't believe it was the leadership, but they had some rebellion in there among themselves, and they killed some people, you know, a lot of people. But this is a violent group. You know, you probably noticed over the last 100 years, this is a very violent group of people. And they got very rambunctious, and they did things that they shouldn't be doing. And if they keep doing it, then we're going to go in and straighten it out, and it'll happen very quickly and pretty violently, unfortunately.
I don't think it would take the IDF very long to finish this off, now that they don't have live hostages to worry about. They would prefer Hamas to follow the deal, but I doubt very much terrorists are going to change in place, even if they're down to their last few thousand maniacs. They're executing people in the street, but the president made it very clear Israel does not have to put up with ceasefire. They're putting in a yellow line. The yellow line has cement blocks that are going in all across Gaza, and if anyone comes past or towards those cement blocks, they're going to get nailed by the IDF. And it takes one more, and I imagine the president will wave them in. The president made some comments about China and South Korea, which I thought interesting. I don't quite know what to make of them. Cut number 5.
I think when we finish our meetings in South Korea, China and I will have a really fair and really great trade deal together. I want them to buy soybeans. They stopped buying our soybeans because they thought that was punishment. And it is punishment to our farmers, but we're not going to allow that to happen because I made a great trade deal with China, a $50 billion trade deal, and they were great about it. They were doing everything that they were supposed to do. And then when Biden came in, you know, I used to call President Xi all the time to say, thank you, or you're not buying enough. In other words, they were supposed to buy. Biden, do you think Biden ever called him? I don't think Biden ever called him. You think Biden lied awake at night thinking about trade with China? He didn't know what he was doing. He was an incompetent president. We had an incompetent president, but you don't have that anymore. So I think we're going to end up having a fantastic deal with China. It's going to be a great trade deal. It's going to be fantastic for both countries, and it's going to be fantastic for the entire world.
I hope he's right. I'm not sure what he's talking about. We'll find out. He said China was being respectful to us right now. Not sure about that. Cut number 6.
I think China's been very respectful of us. They're paying tremendous amounts of money to us as in the form of tariffs. As you know, they're paying 55%. That's a lot of money. They never were paying anything over years and years and years. But they were like anybody else. A lot of countries took advantage of the U.S. They're not taking advantage anymore. No, China's paying 55% and a potential 155% come November 1st, unless we make a deal. And I'm meeting with President Xi. We have a very good relationship. We're going to be meeting in South Korea in a couple of weeks, and we'll see what we can do. We have a very good relationship with China, but you know, it's been probably a little bit like your relationship with China. They try and take advantage, but most countries do. I mean, I can say the European Union took advantage, but not anymore. We worked out a very fair trade deal. Japan, we worked out a very fair deal. South Korea, where I'll be meeting President Xi, we worked out a very fair deal. And I expect we'll probably work out a very fair deal with President Xi of China. So most of you will be with us. It's going to be very exciting. And I think we're going to work out something that's good for both countries.
He is an optimist. He's always an optimist. I'm not an optimist about communist countries because they lie, cheat, and steal. Mamdani will do the same if he runs in New York and he wins in New York. Don't do it, Republicans. Vote for Cuomo. One more cut of the president. This one made me laugh because they had camera crews in there. And camera crews can sometimes not pay attention to stuff on the wall. If you've ever been in a studio, you know that they got a lot of space because the camera crews move around and they do stuff. They run into stuff. The president had to rebuke one of them today. Cut number 7.
Best equipment anywhere in the world by far. And, oh, you got to watch that. Watch that. You're not allowed to break that. That mirror is 400 years old. A camera just hit the mirror. I just moved it up here special from the vaults, and first thing that happens, a camera hits it. Hard to believe, isn't it? Hard to believe, but these are the problems.
You know, this is why the American people like him. It is what he's thinking. It's why he's the best interviewer in America. He'll tell you immediately what he thinks, and he'll tell the cameraman not to break the 400-year-old mirror, which sometimes does happen. All right, now let's go over to Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House. He spoke at a press conference about the shutdown, cut number 9.
And it's also important for us to note this is the first time in history that any party has had the audacity to shut down the government over a totally clean, nonpartisan continuing resolution. This is a political stunt, and it's the first time it's been done, and it is the most costly, most selfish, most dangerous political stunt in the history of the United States Congress, because as we have stood here day after day after day explaining all the Americans who are being harmed by this nonsense. And the Senate Democrats have zero shame about this. They don't have any shame at all about the pain that they're inflicting upon hardworking families, upon soldiers and law enforcement officers and veterans and the elderly and the disabled and women, infants, and children. Services to all those categories and paychecks to those folks are being stalled because Democrats are playing games.
It is clear. It is undisputed. I'll play you some evidence on the other side. We even got John Carl on ABC agreeing it's the Schumer shutdown, and it ought to end tomorrow when they have a vote. Senator Cotton coming up next hour. We'll ask him about when the vote will be. Yesterday, I came across a video of a rabbi in Park Avenue Synagogue, one of the more important synagogues in New York, and his name is Elliot Cosgrove, and he is warning Jews in Manhattan about what happens if Mamdani wins. Cut number 11.
Clear, unequivocal, and on the record. I believe Zohran Mamdani poses a danger to the security of the New York Jewish community. Mamdani's refusal to condemn insightful slogans like globalize the Intifada, his denial of Israel's legitimacy as a Jewish state, his call to arrest Israel's prime minister should he enter New York, and his thrice repeated accusation of genocide in Thursday's debate, for these and so many other statements, past, present, and unrepentant, he is a danger to the Jewish body politic of New York City. For those of you who have heard what I said on the high holidays, my words should come as no...
I'm glad to see every rabbi should be involved in this. Ought as well every imam, every Catholic priest, every Protestant clergy, every agnostic who meets in a Unitarian hall where they don't really believe in anything. Everyone walking on the street ought to realize if you live in New York, you want it to be a good place to live. It's not going to be a good place to live with Zohran Mamdani, a Marxist anti-Semite who doesn't know how to run anything. He can't run a bicycle shop. He can't run a coffee shop. He can't run a bodega. He's never run anything except a legislative office for which there's no accountability. Vote for Cuomo. Let me also ask you to please go over to the top of HughHewitt.com. You'll see there the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews banner. There are still, again, there's more needs this weekend because Hamas killed more IDF soldiers over the weekend. The hostages are home. We are grateful for everyone involved in that, to Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, of course, to President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu, the IDF that freed them and delivered them back, but the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, taking care of all of the people who have been traumatized by this. They've sent up so many different centers all across Israel for those who've been traumatized by the past 2 years. They're helping the very poor in Israel. They're helping the hostage families, and they're asking for your support. Just head over to hughhewitt.com, and at the top of the page, you will see a banner for the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. It's secure, it's safe, it's convenient, it's tax deductible. Now is your time to add your effort to helping Israel recover from the last 2 years of war. Hopefully, the peace plan will progress and there won't be phase 2 of the war. Not an optimist about that. I am definitely not an optimist about New York City under Mamdani. Remember, vote for Andrew Cuomo. You Republicans and independents who are center right or center left, don't let your city go off the cliff. I'm Hugh Hewitt, back inside the Beltway. Thanks to Kurt Schlichter for sitting in for me on Thursday and Friday. I went up to upstate New York to Hobart and William Smith College to participate in the Stern Forum, founded by Judge Stern and his son Sam Stern, who are both on the board there. In the audience, full house. My old colleague from the Washington Post, Ruth Marcus, who's now at the New Yorker, Bill Whitaker from 60 Minutes, and I talking about whether the courts and whether the Department of Justice. Very great crowd, wonderful time, beautiful place to go to school, wonderful kids, had a wonderful conversation. Kurt made that possible. I sure hope colleges keep doing this sort of thing. It's good for students to see that, grown-ups can actually disagree and get along just fine. Ruth and I are dear friends. We don't agree on anything. I mean, literally, I don't know what we agreed on. She thinks it's wrong to prosecute Letitia James, and I think it's fine if Letitia James did what she's alleged to have done. Not too sure I would have indicted Comey. I think I might have gone after John Brennan first, but that's still open. Comey seems to me kind of a dope and not the guy that was the brains behind the plot to destroy Donald Trump's first term that was hatched at Trump Tower before he even was sworn in. I think that's Brennan. But that's all water under the bridge. We just don't agree on the Supreme Court. I think it's going to take us to, it's the best of times, it's the worst of times. Best of times because the court is clearing away terrible precedents like Humphrey's executor, been on the books for 100 years. But they're not going fast enough, in my view, on things like property rights. Ruth is afraid of everything they've decided, beginning, of course, with the decision to overturn Roe. I want to go back to New York for 1 second, on the chance that a New York City voter is still listening and may be persuaded. Last hour, John Katzimatidis, who owns WABC in New York, great guy, billionaire, met him only a couple of times, longtime friend of my affiliate, AM 970, The Answer in New York. Great guy. Curtis works for him, Curtis Lewa. I've known Curtis, probably met him 15 years ago. For a brief period of time, we were on the same channel together. We're not anymore. Seems like a wonderful talk show host. Talk show hosts run at most 4 or 5 people. I've never run anything remotely as complicated as New York. I ran the Office of Personnel Management, which had 6,000 employees and was responsible for billions of dollars of budget. But again, New York City's 300,000 people. So I got some management skills, but Curtis, good guy, ran the Guardian Angels 40 years ago, runs a nice talk show. The guy who owns this station just said, Curtis, drop out. Now, Curtis said he's not going to drop out. That's fine, but what John Katz understands is that Mamdani will destroy the city. He really will. It'll be Cuba on the Hudson. And without the secret police, mind you, your constitutional rights will still apply, but it will be Cuba on the Hudson. And the New York Police Department, the New York Fire Department, the New York City schools, the New York subway system, the New York bus system, it's all going to fall apart. All going to fall apart. Because this guy does not know what he's doing, and what he believes in makes 0 sense at all. So please heed Katz, Curtis, and suspend your campaign. Urge all of your backers to vote for Andrew Cuomo. I know you hate Andrew Cuomo. Part of this is a personal feud. He hates Andrew Cuomo. the city is too important to let a personal feud stay in the way. Because this 30-something who has no idea how to run anything, literally grew up on Marxist theory. He does hate Jews. I think that's pretty well established. He's anti-Semitic. But I don't understand how anyone can hand the world's greatest city over to a rookie, an absolute rookie, and say, good luck, we'll check in 4 years. Bill de Blasio had been the public advocate and had been on the city council. At least he knew where everything was in the city. They're a terrible mayor. New York has been living off of the value added by Rudy Giuliani in 8 years and Michael Bloomberg in 12 years. So they had 20 years of good governance. And good governance meant New York was a happening place that people wanted to go to. Now it's not, because it's suffering under 8 years of de Blasio and 4 years of Eric Adams. And Eric Adams arrested some of the decline in crime, put in Jessica, Tisch as the police commissioner. She's pretty good. Mamdani can fire her on the first day. I didn't think anyone has asked for a firm promise. It wouldn't matter anyway. Once you're elected, you can fire him. Imagine the school district with all the communists he'll bring in as teachers. I really, New York, you cannot do this to your kids. You really cannot do this to your kids. Now, about the shutdown. Senator Cotton's coming up. He'll give us the latest. John Carl was on ABC this week. Here's what John Carl had to say.
The Democrats did not vote for the clean funding bill. They have chosen to shut the government down.
Now, John Carl is a liberal. He is from the left side of the political spectrum. He's on ABC. ABC is the most liberal of the networks. Barry Weiss has not made any changes yet at CBS, but even putting Barry in there makes her the least liberal of the networks. So John is of and by the legacy media. But right here, he's being candid, so I want you to hear him say it again.
The Democrats did not vote for the clean funding bill. They have chosen to shut the government down.
And they have shut it down. Now they have their No Kings rally. I went on Fox with Sandra Smith in the 1 o'clock hour today to explain the realities of this situation. Cut number 2.
And host of the Hugh Hewitt Show, Hugh Hewitt joins us now. Hugh, good to have you back on the program. So Hassett says he sees that maybe this could come to an end this week. Do you see it possibly happening?
Good to be back, Sandra.
Yeah.
I hope he's right. Kevin Hassett's pretty smart, has his finger on the pulse of the negotiations, and to the extent that they exist between the Senate Democrats and the Senate Republicans, there aren't really any negotiations. Either the Democrats vote for the House-passed majority bill that would reopen the government for 6-7 weeks, or they don't. They were allegedly waiting for the kind of frolic and detour that we had yesterday and over the weekend with the No Kings rally. That was kind of humorous on Saturday. Didn't turn out to be the giant energizing event that Democrats expected to be. Rather looked like a gathering of people in my age demographic walking pretty slowly, not getting their super strides in. And at the end of the day, do Democrats really want to be in the thrall of the farthest 5% or 1% of the country that are on the left? I don't think so. So Senator Shaheen became the 4th member of the Democratic caucus to indicate she would vote to reopen. That means we need 4 more, and I hope that we get them on the first time Senator Thune, the majority leader, the Republican majority leader, brings it up, because it's actually doing nothing, helping no one, and being a significant damage to our Defense Department, especially if we can't find pay for the troops a second time, as the president did last week.
Well, Speaker Johnson said he's got multiple meetings happening later today at the White House, including one with President Trump. And here he is earlier talking about the historic nature of this shutdown, Hugh. Listen.
This is the first time in history that we've been in this situation. There has never been a party that shut down the entire government, or a party that shut down, over a clean CR for nothing but political partisan purposes. Their rally illustrated exactly what we've been saying for the last 20 days. This is about politics, and it's disgusting.
You agree?
I do. I do think that the rally was about nothing. The Schumer shutdown is about nothing. They thought there was some advantage in trying this. And I remember one of the old shutdowns, Senator Cruz and his colleagues brought it about to try and stop Obamacare. They had to relent because they couldn't stop Obamacare. They did not have the votes. This is not about anything particular. This is about Chuck Schumer holding off AOC in a primary in 2028. Everybody knows it. They gave themselves an off-ramp. We wanted to wait for the No Kings rally. No Kings rally turned out to be a joke, despite the progressives being quoted about what a wonderful event it was and was a great day in the sun. Let's hope they take the advantage that Thune will offer them this week to reopen. And certainly, John Ossoff, for example, in Georgia, he may be making small dollar donation gains by being in favor of the shutdown, but he is not going to help himself in the general election a year and a month from now by being on the side of shutting down the government for no reason whatsoever.
You know, it keeps coming up on whether or not Congress should continue to get paid while the shutdown continues. Day 20 we are now in. Senator Bernie Sanders took a question on that, and I don't know if he had a prepared answer for it, because here's the exchange on The View earlier. Listen.
If Congress just said, we're not going to take our paychecks till we figure this out, that would be a noble step in the right direction, I would say.
That's not everybody can afford to do. You got some young people there with kids there.
Either can the people that aren't getting paid, though.
I think that's a fair point. I think that's a fair point.
I mean, you've seen the approval rating of Congress. I mean, does she have a point there? You agree?
She did, and Bernie gave the game away. Not everyone can afford the game that Democrats are playing, and it's not just federal employees who missed a paycheck last week. It's also federal contractors and their families as well. They're not getting paid at all. Luckily, we got the military paid because President Trump ordered Secretary Hegseth to find undemarcated money that could go into paying the troops for an extra 2 weeks. I don't think we can pull that off a second time. I hope we can if we have to. But the deal is a lot of people cannot. I hope we don't have to, but the deal is Bernie Sanders gave the game away. Open the government, John Ossoff and the Democrats, or I think the voters will remember. Joined by United States Senator Tom Cotton, who is chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, also leader of the Republican Conference, making him the third-ranking Republican in the Senate. I doubt very much he went to the No Kings rally inside the Beltway on Saturday, but I'll check for news purposes. Senator, were you marching on Saturday in the No Kings rally?
Not in Washington, not in the very small ones in Arkansas or anywhere else across the country. I'll leave that to the Democrats and their pro-Hamas wing. And hopefully, now that that rally is behind us and Chuck Schumer is no longer scared of being burned at effigy at the one up in Washington, the Democrats will come to their senses, and a few more will join the three that have already been voting with us for the last 3 weeks to get the government back open, to get federal workers and our troops paid, and the government working on behalf of the American people, so then we can do the people's business.
Now, Senator, I was on Fox and Friends yesterday talking about Saturday's rally and referred to it as the largest water aerobics gathering I'd ever seen on their way to the early bird special. It was my demo. You know that, right? It was your mom and dad's demo. It was your in-laws' demo. They were moving kind of slow. It's not what the Democrats thought was going to turn. It's kind of humorous, wasn't it?
Well, to be fair to both you and my folks, it may have been your age demo, but it definitely wasn't your political demo.
Oh, no. No. But do you think it achieved the result that they needed in order to get off this thing?
I don't know exactly what results they were hoping to achieve, Hugh. I mean, I guess they thought, as Chris Murphy said last week, that he was protesting in defense of democracy, which is a curious conception of defending democracy since he keeps voting to shut down our democratically elected government.
Is there going to be any movement at all, Senator Cotton, at all, from the Republicans? Because I don't think there should be, but I don't know what's going on in the leader's mind.
No, Hugh, we've been clear all along that if the Democrats want to advocate for your tax dollars to fund health care for illegal aliens or any other such foolish ideas, they're welcome to do so after the government is reopened. And they can introduce that legislation, and we can have a vote on it on the floor if they want, but we're not going to give them a guaranteed result on such silly policies. And we're not going to just disregard the results of the election last year, in which the American people elected President Trump and a Republican Congress to make sure that we're focused on American citizens, on their needs, on getting their taxes lower, on securing their communities. Again, if the Democrats want to have these debates when the government is reopened, they can, but we're certainly not going to allow them to hold all of us hostage and demand an absurd ransom for it. I mean, just look at their own bill, Hugh, that would fund the government. It would result in more than $1 trillion of new spending. It would cut more than $50 billion from a support fund for rural hospitals who've been struggling for years. And it would extend the fraudulent riddled Obamacare, Biden, COVID bonuses. That's simply not something that the American people want, and that's not something the Republican Congress will support.
Now, the first reason I came to believe the Democrats might relent this week and reopen the government is that I saw in one of the gossip sheets that their condition for passing the defense appropriations bill will be passing the appropriations bill that funds the Labor Department and other things. That's the talk that usually precedes an end game. First, do you have the votes to get the defense appropriations across the finish line with or without Democrats? Do you need 5 Democrats there as well?
We need a little more than that, Hugh. You know, we've got 53 Republican senators, so we always need at least 7 Democrats if all 53 Republicans vote together. But they had their chance on Thursday. We voted on the defense funding bill on Thursday, and every Democrat, I believe, voted against it. There may have been 1 or 2 for it, but certainly not enough to move the debate forward. They say that they'll do that if we agree to have debate on the labor and the health and human services funding bill, Hugh. The entire point of this short-term funding bill was for us to have this exact debate. If they had simply kept the government open 3 weeks ago, we would have probably already voted not just on the defense bill and the labor bill and the health and human services bill, but say on transportation and housing and military construction and veterans affairs and the agriculture department and preferably all the spending bills. This is exactly what we're trying to do. This is the whole point of a short-term funding bill, is to allow the Congress the time it needs to vote on the full-year funding bills. So the Democrats' position, again, is somewhat absurd. I would recommend they just vote to open the government and get people back to work, get them their paychecks, and then we can debate all these things as we normally would do in the Congress.
Do they, you have to deal with these folks that you work with, whether or not you agree with them or not. Young John Ossoff, who's facing an uphill battle. And right now we're talking to a lot of Atlanta. I think we're the largest show in Atlanta during drive time on their way home. Their senator is standing in the way of all the federal contractors getting paid, as well as all the federal employees getting paid. Where in your book of running for office does that make sense, Senator Cotton?
Hugh, I don't know, but, to John Ossoff's credit, or I don't know, maybe his detriment, depending on your point of view, he has never trimmed or hedged since he's been in the Senate. He has been a true blue liberal from the very beginning. He's voted to allow men to share locker rooms and bathrooms with girls and play in girls' sports. He's voted to cut off weapons to Israel in the middle of a shooting war, and now he's voting repeatedly not to support our troops, not to pay their salaries, not to keep the government funded. So it's been from the very beginning with John Ossoff for 4+ years now that he's been a true blue liberal, more like a senator from California than from Georgia, but I suspect the people of Georgia will have something to say about that next November.
I hope so. That's going to be one that we focus on. I know that Gary Peters is retiring, Tina Smith is retiring, Jeanne Shaheen is retiring, 3 Democrats. Have any of them indicated that they're willing to cross over and join Cortez Masto from Nevada and Angus King, who's an independent who caucuses with Democrats from Maine? There's one other, John Fetterman, of course. Any of those other 3 who are not running indicated that they're coming around to common sense?
Well, John Fetterman, to his credit, has voted with us every time, and he's been clear from the beginning that we should not shut down the government over the Democrats' foolhardy demands about taxpayer-financed health care for illegal aliens. Hugh, those are some of the Democratic senators you would expect to vote to reopen the government once they get past their hissy fit. Many of them voted to fund the government back in March. The problem here is that typically they'll follow those kinds of members who are retiring or self-styled moderates would be following their elected leader on taking votes that may be unpopular with their own party. But Chuck Schumer won't do that. Chuck Schumer is scared to death. Ocasio-Cortez running against him in 3 years, and he's scared to death of his party's far left wing. So without him being willing to vote for this bill, you got many other fewer Democratic senators saying they're not going to either.
Quick last question, Senator Cotton. The president directed Secretary Hegseth, and they found the money to pay the troops last week. Can that be done twice? Is there enough undetermined money in the Pentagon that they can find what they need to make payroll again?
I think that's to be determined, Hugh. Obviously, the department's budget is very large. They were able to find enough for one payroll period, but that's a pretty sizable chunk of change when you think about what all of our troops make across the country. The simplest thing to do to avoid that necessity, again, would be for the Democrats to vote to reopen the government, and then we can debate whatever issue they want while we're paying our troops, while we're paying federal law enforcement officers, while we're funding health care and nutritional needs for poor women with young children. That's the simplest way to make sure all of these priorities are funded, is to reopen the government.
Agreed. Senator Cotton, thank you so much. We avoided all Red Sox and Guardians talk, so that was a win as well for both of us. Kevin Hassett is one of President Trump's most trusted economic advisors. He was on Joe Kernan this morning on CNBC. Here is what Kevin Hassett had to say about the shutdown.
Well, first of all, the president has been very active throughout this process, but it's also his position that this is a thing that the Senate needs to work out. A lot of our friends in the Senate have said that it was just bad optics for Democrats to open the government before the No Kings rally, and that now there's a shot that this week things will come together and very quickly the moderate Democrats will move forward and get us an open government, at which point we could negotiate whatever policies they want to negotiate with regular order. Now, I was very pleased to see that my friend Senator Shaheen from New Hampshire, a very sound-minded Democrat, came out and supported opening the government on Friday. So it means that there's sort of cracks in the Schumer armor. I think the Schumer shutdown is likely to end sometime this week. But I can tell you that if the story that we've been basically hearing from moderates that, look, we just can't do it in front of the No Kings rally, if that ends up not being true, then I think that the White House is going to have to look very closely, along with Russ Vought, at stronger measures that we could take to bring him to the table.
So let me translate that for people. Tens of thousands of federal workers will be laid off, and they will not be rehired if the Chuck Schumer shutdown continues after Tuesday. I mean, they're going to have to find money in a lot of places to keep paying the troops, because we got to pay the troops, and a lot of people aren't going to get their jobs back when this ends. So if I were a government union representative, I would be on the phone to Senator Schumer, ask him to make his remarks brief, to the point, and reopen the government, and get back to actually funding the government in the way that the electorate wanted. Because, you see, they might have had 7 million people across the country. That's one of the numbers I've seen. I don't know how they make that stuff up. They might have had 7 million people. Donald Trump got 77 million votes. So 10% of the winning number doesn't equal a veto on the majority's ability to pass appropriations bill. So please reopen the government. Now, let me also tell you, you're probably experiencing all sorts of computer problems today. That's because of Amazon's big outage. We still don't have a reason for it, but if your search engines aren't working, your connections are not working, you've had an inability to connect across the workplace or at home or anywhere that you work from today, you're not alone. All sorts of people are frustrated. Amazon's working it. They haven't given us any explanation yet about whether it was sabotage or simply someone tripped over a wire. And believe me, I've seen that happen. So it does happen. Sometimes people just trip over a wire and unplug a cable. I've seen that happen. Might have been that little. But it makes you think how fragile your online life is. And one of the reasons I allow and ask WebRoot to sponsor us is I believe that you ought to be protected by WebRoot Essentials or WebRoot Total Protection. You go to webroot.com/Hewitt. That's webroot.com/Hewitt. I recommend the Total Protection package. Why screw around with a smaller version of Total Protection when it comes to online threats, given how fast they are growing, how ubiquitous is your need for the internet, how many devices you've got in your house and your family. Now, they have one identity, 5 device plans, and they have family plans for up to 10 identities and 10 devices. And by identity, some people have a work identity and some people have a private identity, and whatever makes your boat float, fine. WebRoot will protect it from holes springing in it, holes that can be exploited by malign influences on the web. Really, you've got to go and check it out. Find out how you can have 24/7 US-based customer support. You can have detection of text scams, which seem to pile up, stack up over the weekend every time I look away. Unlimited cloud backup, lots of deep web monitoring to make sure that they get out ahead of any attempt to use your identity and steal it from you. Don't get taken online. Instead, get WebRoot Total Protection by going to webroot.com/Hewitt. Since we're talking about saving yourself from exploitation online, let me also talk about saving you some money with your cell phone. consumercellular.com/Hugh. consumercellular.com/Hugh. There is a reason that you see a lot of advertisements for different cell companies out there, and that's because big cell costs too much money for data that you do not need or use. You want to go to one of the startups, you want to go to one of the newbies, you can have savings without sacrificing service. It's all the same network. Consumer Cellular, I think, offers the best deal, which is why when you go to consumercellular.com/Hugh, you'll get an additional $25 off. That's $5 each of your first 5 invoices. It only takes about 20 minutes to switch cell phone providers. Don't wait another day. Save yourself money this month. Get 2 lines, unlimited data if you're 50 years and over, for $60 a month flat. So if you're one of the unlimited data must-haves, consumercellular.com/Hugh will help you. But check out all their plans and find out. Get your phone bill out and find out how much you're actually using. And then go to consumercellular.com/Hugh or call 1-800-411-4454. That's 1-800-411-4454 or consumercellular.com/Hugh. Welcome to Vic Mattis of the Washington Free Beacon's brand new theme song. He specifically requested this because he told me he was born in New York City, and it's melting in the rain right now. Vic, which hospital were you born at in New York City?
I was born in a hospital that no longer exists, Hugh, because I'm that old. It was called the French Polyclinic Hospital, and I think ultimately became part of Cabrini Medical Center.
Okay. Now, I spent the first part of the program telling everyone in Manhattan who's a Republican to please vote for Andrew Cuomo, the owner of WABC, Katz. And everybody know John Katzimatidis. That he asked Curtis, who works for him, please drop out. What do you think is going to happen on November 4?
I think that on November 4, Mamdani is going to be the next elected the next mayor of New York. I hate to tell you that, but I just don't see. In a perfect world, Curtis Sliwa would make an announcement. He could have made one a long time ago already, saying, everybody, I appreciate the support and the love you've given me that's brought me 13, 15, 18% or whatever the current number is, and I want all those people to throw all of your support to Andrew Cuomo, to put him over the top. Ex-former Governor Cuomo is not the most perfect candidate, obviously, but he is better than the Democratic Socialist. I mean, we're talking about, the lesser of two evils, and it's very obvious to me which direction New York seems to be heading in. And it's going to be interesting in a very dark way, Hugh, because just like the way I used to follow German politics in the 90s going into the 2000s, when the German Green Party took over, they had some really radical, crazy ideas. And I asked the chairman and founder at the time how they had to change in order to remain in power. And he said, yeah, a lot of that rhetoric they had to tone down. They had to become realistic. And obviously they became part of a coalition that sent German troops, to Bosnia and Kosovo for the first time since, outside of the country since World War II. Mamdani can make a similar shift when he becomes mayor and saying, all that stuff I talked about, the free buses and raising taxes by billions of dollars, I'm not going to do any of those things in the free grocery stores because reality is hitting me. I'm very young, inexperienced, and I'm learning the hard way. This is what it takes to stay in power. He could do that, Hugh, but something tells me he's instead going to lean in and find out the hard way that his ideas do not work because he absolutely cannot fathom disappointing his base. And that base is very hard radical left.
Vic, do you have any idea how many people work for the city of New York? I had to look this up for a column I wrote for Fox tomorrow. City employees, not state and federal, just city. Have any idea how many people work for the city of New York?
No, I have no idea. There's about, 8 million people total in the city of New York.
8.5 million. 8.5 million. 300,000 on the payroll. 300,000. He runs the state legislator's office, which has, I looked this up as well, between 8 and 12 people, depending on how they divide up the budget. So he's run for 6 years a state legislative office of between 8 and 12 people. What do you think he's going to do? He won't have any idea how to do this.
Like I said, I mean, he's going to have to find out the hard way. People so love the charisma. He's a smooth talker. I mean, the last debate, if anyone actually cared to watch it, I know you and I were watching this debate, there's no there. It's all very thin, right? and he can't actually back up his words with any actions. And he has such great difficulty in these interviews. Just the inability for him to say that what Hamas did is terrible and Hamas needs to stop. And it's just full stop, a great thing that those hostages are being returned. He couldn't get himself to say that, among other things, regarding New York policies. Again, he's going to learn the hard way. New Yorkers are going to flee. You already know. I mean, obviously, folks like, Carl Icahn and others have left New York City and abandoned Wall Street for West Palm Beach. And others are going to do so. Absolutely.
Miami can become a banking capital and a finance capital, and so can Dallas, and they have zero income tax. New York, if Mamdani has his way, will go to 16.8% for the highest people. 4 years ago, Eric Adams got 753,801 votes. Curtis Sliwa got 313,385 votes. He's not going to do that well this time. If his boss at WABC doesn't want him to do it, is it just personal venom on the part of Curtis doing this? I know he hates Andrew Cuomo, but why would you do this?
Yeah, I don't know. Other than, I can't imagine that he's fooled himself into somehow thinking that, within the next few days, he's able to pull off, this come from behind victory, or somehow Andrew Cuomo is going to leave. And there were rumors that he was going to be tied with Cuomo, but they're still woefully behind Mamdani. That's the biggest problem of all, even if he were to overtake Andrew Cuomo's lead. So I don't know. I don't know Curtis Sliwa personally. I was always a fan of his. In the 1980s, we'd go to New York, you'd see the Guardian Angels and the Red Berets, you'd see them in the subways, you'd see them on the streets, and you're like, great, somebody is doing something about crime in the city, even if they don't have guns. And I appreciated all that work in the service. He knows more about the city than any of these guys, because he's been involved in city politics for this long, for all these decades. At the same time, he has to come to understand he doesn't have it, and he needs to make a sort of responsible choice here, because there's a lot at stake in New York. And again, I talked to a guy who has, a very wealthy investor businessman in New York City, and he talked to all his young people because they're all voting for Mamdani. He said, "Why are you doing it?" And they think, "Oh, because I can't afford housing." He says he's going to help me. And this guy said, and this guy is no conservative, Hugh, and he said, mind you, when things get bad, I can leave, but you can't. They'll be stuck there.
Well, I had a student at Hobart and William Smith College on Friday, where I was, asked me about the free buses. And I said, there isn't anything free. Someone has to pay the driver. Someone has to buy the gas. Someone has to watch them at night. Someone's got to change the oil. The whole free stuff is nonsense, Curtis. Vic, how does he get away with it?
Yeah, people, they want to believe this so badly because they understand, and it is a big problem about, living in New York City and trying to have a decent living and not having to live so far away in order to get to your job if your job happens to be, say, in Manhattan. And so they want so badly to believe that he has the answers to it, but he definitely doesn't. As you mentioned, nothing is free. It's not like these workers are going to, for the sake of the glory of the state, just put in their time. Again, you can... I wouldn't be surprised if these young socialists were saying, well, it's never been tried before. That's why we're going to give it a real try. And they'd have no idea.
Oh, I got that.
About the historical.
Oh, I got that.
Oh, man.
I got the Cuban healthcare system is best. I got that, too. It's like nobody understands any history since the wall fell down. Vic Mattis can be followed at Victorino Mattis. He can be heard on the Getting Hammered podcast, and he'll be back here next week. Thank you, Vic. If you haven't yet taken your relief factor and you went to the No Kings rally and you overextended yourself and you pulled, like, many muscles, you have a chance to call right now, 1-800-4RELIEF, and get the starter pack for $19.95. Now, I take it every day, and I've been taking it for a dozen years. It's the only supplement I've taken for more than 20, and it works. It does get rid of the minor aches and pains that you might have gotten if you're in my demo and you walked, say, 3 or 4 miles and you're not normally used to trundling like I did. I had a hamstring problem last week. It's gone. I got my 4 in on Saturday after driving forever on Friday and Thursday and Wednesday, but I'm feeling great now because Relief Factor does work. Icarian, curcumin, resveratrol, and omega, 4 pills in 1 pack, easy to take. I take it on air every day. You can watch on the Salem News Channel, hear me take it on the Salem Radio Network, all of our great affiliates. And I remind you every hour to do it. If you're listening right now, leave it in your car, take it on your way to work or when you're coming home, or leave it in the kitchen next to the coffee pot or in your bathroom next to your toothbrush. Wherever you must go once a day, take Relief Factor, 1-800, the number 4 in the word relief, and you can get that starter pack $19.95, less than $1 a day at relieffactor.com. Relieffactor.com. Vice President Vance and the Second Lady just departed for Israel, where they're going to try and make the Gaza peace plan move forward from steps 1 and 2. I'm not an optimist, but I think Vice President Vance will do his best. I am an optimist about my audience helping out the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews that are sponsoring a campaign to garner support from everybody out there. Yael Eckstein is their great president. I think I've got a quote from Yael. Yes, we do. Here's what they do.
The needs right now in Israel, as you could imagine, after being attacked and in war for 2 years, they're huge. I've never seen more people calling the fellowship and asking us to provide them with food. The fellowship has needed to open more soup kitchens during this war because so many people are suffering. Because I read the scriptures and God says, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, shelter the poor. And that's exactly what I see here. We need food and we need shelter.
You can trust the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. They've been at this for decades. Very, very reliable. You can find the banner over at HughHewitt.com. The war may have entered a ceasefire stage, both to the north with Lebanon and to the south with Gaza, but it doesn't mean it's over. It certainly doesn't mean that the people who have suffered so much for 2 years do not need the resilience centers that the fellowship built and staff. Still need to deliver the food, still need to provide assistance to the poor. You can contribute to the IFCJ at HughHewitt.com. The banner is at the very top. Can I play one more time the rabbi, please, his message? We might not get the whole thing in, but let's try.
Clear, unequivocal, and on the record. I believe Zoran Mamdani poses a danger to the security of the New York Jewish community. Mamdani's refusal to condemn insightful slogans like globalize the Intifada, his denial of Israel's legitimacy as a Jewish state, his call to arrest Israel's prime minister should he enter New York, and his thrice repeated accusation of genocide in Thursday's
You got
debate.
it. The rabbi, who is a Park Avenue rabbi, is telling Jews in New York, and I'm telling everyone in New York City, vote for Cuomo. Bethany Mandel is my guest. She joins me most week in the second segment of Hour 3, but we're starting the hour because Vice President Vance and the Second Lady just got on a plane bound for Israel in an effort to keep momentum going on the ceasefire. I am skeptical given Hamas's behavior in the last week. Bethany, what do you think?
I'm also very skeptical. I think that this is an important trip, both for the ceasefire, but also I think it's important for Vice President Vance to see who he's dealing with over the course of the rest of this administration, and if he continues and becomes president in the next cycle or becomes the nominee for the next cycle. I think that this is very instructive of who he's dealing with when it comes to the Palestinians. This is why everyone on the right side of the aisle, whether it be, President Trump, Netanyahu, everyone, they said we have to get the hostages out in phase 1 because this is what happened after every single ceasefire for the last 2 years. Hamas did not uphold their end of the bargain, and hostages were left in the tunnels. And so this was the importance of getting the hostages out first, because Hamas cannot uphold its end of the bargain ever.
Now, what is your understanding if Israel has to go back to full-scale war? They're putting in the yellow line, and I saw pictures of the yellow blocks being erected. But, of course, Hamas attacked IDF soldiers and killed 2 on Saturday. Israel responded with a lot of bombing, but you can't get to the tunnels and you can't get to the terrorists if you only use air attack. Do you expect the IDF to be back in combat before the end of October?
I think it's entirely possible, and this is a very different situation than it's been for 2 years, because they had to be very careful because Hamas was using the live hostages as human shields, and that is now off the table. So this is actually a very different war than has been for the last 2 years, and Israel doesn't have to hold back, especially when it comes to tunnel openings and everything. They can really go full bore at it. It's why hostages were taken in the first place, because Hamas knew that they would have this capability of the protection, and it's gone now. And it's a very different ballgame as a result.
Now, I want to play for you Elliot Cosgrove, who's the rabbi of a synagogue on Park Avenue, gave a statement. I'm switching subjects over to Mr. Mamdani right now to get your reaction to what Rabbi Cosgrove had to say on Saturday, cut number 11.
Clear, unequivocal, and on the record. I believe Zoran Mamdani poses a danger to the security of the New York Jewish community. Mamdani's refusal to condemn insightful slogans like globalize the Intifada, his denial of Israel's legitimacy as a Jewish state, his call to arrest Israel's prime minister should he enter New York, and his thrice repeated accusation of genocide in Thursday's debate, for these and so many other statements, past, present, and unrepentant, he is a danger to the Jewish body politic of New York City. For those of you who have heard what I said on the high holidays, my words should come.
It goes on to say, as no surprise. Bethany, what do you make of his statement?
It's incredible, honestly. I mean, so the dynamics of the American Jewish community are very weird and interesting. Generally speaking, if a rabbi is willing to have a microphone pinned to his lapel and have his remarks taped, that is not a conservative, and I'm saying that politically, that's not a conservative rabbi. That is someone who is liberal in every single way, including religiously, including politically. And so for him to stand up there and say that so unequivocally really sends a message. Mamdani is an existential threat to the New York Jewish community. He is a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. He's very proud of it. And their record on anything, not just Israel, but Jewish, is terrifying. So I think it was an important step that he made that statement so unequivocally and so clearly. I pray that his parishioners were listening, because the majority of New York Jews must be suicidal because they're still planning on voting for Mamdani, because unfortunately, again, this is the dynamic of the American Jewish community. They've, in many circumstances, decided that their religion is actually their progressive politics. It's not actually their religion, Judaism. But I hope this sends a message.
14% of Manhattan or New York City's voting electorate is Jewish. 14%.
It's wild.
And 8.5 million people live there. So that's 850,000 plus another. It's more than 1 million Jewish votes. Eric Adams only won with 715,000 votes 4 years ago. They could actually, if they turn this election away from Mamdani. Why would they not do that?
I mean, it's suicidal empathy. It's really, really wild to watch the American Jewish community commit suicide in this way. I hope that they listen to him. I hope that they care enough about themselves than, their progressive politics. But Mamdani is an existential threat. And, the polling indicates that if Sliwa pulls out, which he has no chance at winning, if he pulls out, it's a 4-point race between Cuomo and Mamdani. I'm not a lover of Cuomo, but it's sure better than a communist running the financial capital of the country.
Yeah, the owner of WABC, John Catsimatidis, called on Curtis to get out. Now that is a big signal to Curtis. He ain't going to have a talk show when he gets back from this. It helps talk show hosts to make chaotic tilting at windmills, but this is not that. This is very, very serious. Republicans in New York City have no idea. I first moved there in 1980. You don't want to go back to the future there. Mm-hmm. You really don't want to live in that New York. And that was already beginning to escape from the absolute depths of the 70s, but it would be a nightmare.
Yeah, no, it would be the death of New York as we know it. And it's already not doing well. It's already on life support in so many different neighborhoods. I literally just parked my car 10 minutes ago. We were in New York last night for the Commentary Magazine roast. And we drove through, and I looked at my husband, Seth, and I was like, this is not the city I loved for most of my life. It's on life support. And if Mamdani comes in, that's it. He's going to be the best real estate broker Palm Beach has ever seen.
Yeah, well, I talked to a real estate agent, Dottie Herman, last week. she expects property values to fall by 20% in the residential market if he wins. How was the roast, by the way? I didn't, I've never been to one. I'm going to go to one eventually. They always sound fun.
They're so fun. It was great because this year, so last year it was Natan Sharansky, and no one felt comfortable roasting him because he's like a living Jewish saint. This year it was Cliff Asness, and it was brutal. It was amazing. They ripped him to shreds.
We got to tell people he's a very, very successful investor. He is a great member of the American Jewish Committee. He's a longtime supporter of Commentary Magazine. But they went after him.
And
they took 2 years of pent-up roasting.
Oh, yeah. His brother shivved him. It was brutal. It was so good.
Well, yesterday was the big MSNBC rebrand event as well, or maybe it was Saturday to MS Now. That was pretty pathetic. Let me get your closing comment on the wonderful No Kings rallies. Were you near any of them? Did you notice that they were all older than me?
My daughter's bat mitzvah was over the weekend, and my step-parents, who are like super, super liberal, they left the bat mitzvah early, and I'm pretty sure it was to go to a No Kings rally.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Was it a good bat mitzvah?
It was lovely. It was lovely.
Well, tell her congratulations for me. Did she do her reading the right way?
She got up there. It was actually funny because she got up there without notes, and the rabbi said, "Where are your notes?" And she said, "I'm just going to wing it." And the rabbi looked at Seth and I, and he's like, "Well, I know who her parents are."
Okay, good for her. And she got through it. I've only been to 2 bar mitzvahs, and both times it was an enjoyable experience because the kids had worked hard, but nevertheless they were sweating bullets. And so I'm glad to hear that some people
killed it.
Wing their way through it. And then you drove to New York and back.
It was so glad. What a day.
What a day. Bethany Shondark on X. Go to the momwars.substack.com or follow her on X at Bethany Shondark. Thank you, Bethany. Got to remind everyone, get your relief factor, especially if you're in the No Kings rally. Especially if you're in the No Kings rally and you're feeling those aches and pains from walking your 3 miles with your walkers or your canes. We know what the average demo was. Whatever it is, if you're aging or you're exercising, you're doing both, and you should be doing both. Relief Factor will make it get through the day a little bit easier. $19.95 is the starter pack. That's 3 weeks supply. Call 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF. Or you can find the starter pack, less than $1 a day again, 3 weeks supply, 3 a day for the first day, a week, 2 a day for each day in the second week, and then you're on the 1 a day program, just like me, 1 packet a day. But that starter pack will teach you that it indeed does get rid of those minor aches and pains that you should not be taking over-the-counter meds every single day to combat. Try Relief Factor, 1-800, the number 4-RELIEF, or go to their website, relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. One of our favorite go-to guys on the market is David Bahnsen. He is the managing partner of the Bahnsen Group, which manages lots and lots of money. He is also the proprietor of the Dividend Cafe, which I consult regularly, and so should you. David, welcome back. We haven't talked in a while. I got a lot to ask you, but first, the market had a great, strong day today. And I know I don't give financial advice, and neither do you over the radio, but what do you think about the market acting this way when the government is allegedly closed and we're in the middle of a big freeze and the No Kings rally and all that, and the market says, nah?
Well, look, I mean, Hugh, the market is shut, the government is shut down a lot of times over my adult lifetime, and the market has always shrugged it off, even back when we used to not know that it was a joke. But now the markets know it's a joke, and you can't find a market actor that is thinking about the government shutdown, let alone these silly rallies, as any kind of market factor. There's big market factors right now. There's things that matter. There's up in the airness about the U.S.-China trade deal. There's still no bilateral trade deal with India. There is a very high valuation in the S&P. There is an AI CapEx trade that is increasingly looking very levered and very risky. But the government shutdown, it's not even in my top 20.
Okay, is the takeover of New York by an anti-Semitic communist in your top 20?
Not as a market factor. It's much higher as a cultural and political factor. It's rather self-explanatory how it came to be. There needs to be a tremendous political lesson learned when you don't have a viable candidate to go against. They ran a geriatric candidate who'd been a failed governor, who didn't take the campaign seriously. And we've seen this not a ton of times, but we've seen it enough times to know that when you don't take a candidate seriously, sometimes they can end up sneaking up behind you and beating you. And so, you know, there is certainly relevance in the political scene to this disaster. He's most certainly going to win, but no, it's not a market story.
You know, I still think there is a chance if Republicans come to their senses. The Republicans are only 11% of the New York City electorate, and Curtis, whether or not he drops out, hopefully becomes irrelevant, and they vote for Cuomo. Because the most he's ever run, David, is a staff of 10 people. 300,000 people work for New York City. You live there a lot of the. What do you think could happen there?
Well, there's a mixed bag. I think de Blasio was as bad of a mayor as one could imagine, and a lot of things happened to the quality of life for people in New York, and the city did survive. I'm not in the same camp where a lot of my friends are on this. On one hand, I'm very much in the camp that it's a disaster, and that what he represents is a symbol. It's one of the reasons, Hugh, that I'm so opposed to right-wing populism, because it leaves us rudderless in fighting against left-wing socialism, the real article. And this guy's the real deal. He's not a fake anti-Semite. He's not a fake jihadi sympathizer. He's not a fake populist. He's all of these bad things and more. But then when people talk about he's going to raise all your taxes to the 100%, he can't do that. He won't do that because he's not able to do that as mayor. So it's bad, but a lot of people are overstating what will happen practically. But there needs to be a lesson learned in how we win the argument so we can win the election. And I think that I have more concerns about it happening nationally than I do it happening in the world's greatest city that is New York.
You know, I talked to Dottie Herman last week. I'm making the argument Republicans should vote for Cuomo. She has 7,000 real estate agents working for her, and a lot of them aren't going to have anything to do. And she thought retail or residential real estate would go down 20% in the city. And I think that's a fair bet. And it's not good for the country. It's not good. Mark Levin and I agree that this is a nightmare that we don't want to go down. Now, David, let's talk about the average investor. Because I pay attention to everybody, I'm pretty heavy in cash right now because I think the market is over-levered. What is your advice generally to clients?
Well, you know, Hugh, I think it's different than being over-levered. I think it's overvalued. And I think that when things are overly leveraged, you have a lot of systemic risk because that excessive level of debt that builds up becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy when assets have to reprice. And there's excessive leverage in certain parts of the economy, but not in all. The issue is valuation, okay? An S&P trading at 23 times next year's earnings. And I'm just telling you, Hill, it's an economic model that people do not understand as to what's going on this AI capex. That a company can announce they're going to spend tens or hundreds of billions of dollars they don't have with another company, then that company's stock goes up. That company announces they're going to spend tens or hundreds of billions with an NVIDIA or whatnot, and NVIDIA announces they're investing in the first initial company. In this case, it may be OpenAI we're talking about, but it doesn't have to be. There's others that fill into this circular model, and if that's what you mean by over-levered, I'm with you completely. You're talking about trillions of dollars of revenue that has to materialize, not because of people buying chips for AI. I mean AI creating that kind of revenue in the real economy, where right now it's creating 30 billion, not trillions.
But the expenditure is real. The CapEx is real. At least I read John Ellis in the morning, and he summarizes for me the financial news over at News Items, and I know you're all over everything. The expenditure is an actual outlay. The data centers are real. I don't know if they produce profits in 5 years, but it is a short-term stimulus, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's two elements here. You bring up the data center. We do not have the power. They're not going to be able to get that kind of power. I mean, OpenAI has essentially talked about a level of gigawatts that would take $12.5 trillion to produce that power. But the expenditures are real. The income is not. There isn't the money to pay for it. And so apart from the circularity that I was talking about, That's the unanswered question. But you're referring to the revenue for data center. You're right. Companies are ordering data center, and that's real CapEx, but they don't have the money to pay for it. Then the question is on the other revenue side, not the data center provide the power, but the revenue to actually generate the computing power and then to get some sort of monetization in the real economy from what the computing power is supposed to do. I mean, it can't just be subscription fees for ChatGPT. That soaking wet isn't going to pay for 2% of this. So there's a lot of unanswered questions. Now, by the way, Hugh, they may all end up being answered. There may be a path where all of this lines up and these things kind of come together. I think that's unlikely, and I think it's impossible without a lot of hair along the way.
You put your finger on the most important thing, which is energy is freedom, and energy is required, and small modular reactors are at least 5 years away. So, David, 30 seconds. What are you advising generally your clients to be at when it comes to the division of their wealth in stocks, bonds, cash, and other assets?
Yeah, well, that division of stocks, bonds, cash, and other assets is going to be different client by client because different clients have different needs, different cash flow needs, different risk tolerance, different objectives. So we only manage money on a custom basis. But what we are advising people to do is be more defensive. Don't want to raise a whole lot of cash, particularly as the Fed's lowering rates and savers are going to get paid less and less. But to be more defensive in what stocks they do own. You know, Hugh, we're dividend growth investors. The market has loved all these shiny objects of AI, CapEx, but I'm telling you, there's some great things to buy that are real, consistent dividend growers that make a lot more sense.
David Bahnsen of the Bahnsen Group and the dividendcafe.com. Always a pleasure, David. Thank you. I just saw that Britt Hume, most reliable man in news, posted that the Ninth Circuit had reversed the ruling that prohibited President Trump from sending National Guard to Portland. Now, that's got to be a 3-judge panel. Could have been a good draw. Might go en banc and might lose. But if it gets to the Supreme Court, the president's going to win that. The president runs the National Guard when he wants to protect federal facilities. This is not hard. That it's been made hard is because we have activist judges who just don't like President Trump. It's not the rule of law. And thank you, Britt, for calling our attention to the Ninth Circuit panel ruling. As David Bahnsen and I were just talking, we have a sponsor, the American Exploration and Production Council, and AXPC.org is in the business of making it easier to get energy out of the ground and into pipelines, and pipelines built and wells drilled for both oil and natural gas. Mostly independent natural gas people, companies that get the stuff. Very clean energy, by the way. Very clean energy. Oil is necessary. Natural gas is wonderful. And you got to have pipelines to move both. The American Exploration and Production Council is in the business of permitting reform. They're trying to get the United States to recognize we cannot grow without energy. We need energy that is made in America, found in America, transported in America, transported in America, made to work in America. And that's why we need permit reform. Please go and visit axpc.org and get in on the game. Now, when I talk about permitting reform, I get a little bit passionate because I did it for 30 plus years. And I did it as a lawyer on behalf of oil and natural gas companies, as well as home developers and residential and commercial real estate developers. I know how hard it is to get permits. It's a ridiculous, stupid system. And we really need axpc.org to win the hearts and minds of people on the Hill and get America back in the business of drilling and building the wells and the pipelines that it needs. Visit axpc.org to learn more. While I'm talking about energy, let me tell you about some energy for your own home, for the backyard. BestHotGrill.com is our wonderful sponsor and have been for decades. Rhett and Irene do a wonderful business making the world's best grills, Solaire infrared grills. Go to 3,000 degrees in a minute. Absolutely wonderful. Generalissimo uses them. I use them on both coasts. And I've got something on the West Coast I want to tell you about. Best Patio Heaters. Now, when you go over to BestHotGrill.com, you can try it before you buy it if you want to get one of their big grills or you want to get one of their hibachis. But make sure you scroll down past all their wonderful endorsements, and they got lots of wonderful endorsements. BestHotGrill.com makes a great product, so people who use it love to talk about it. But get down to the Best Patio Heater, because, boy, that thing keeps your patio warm. We have them in California. When we leave here at the beginning of the new year for a couple of months, because the Beltway is just not good enough for my California bride. She cannot put up with a little bit of Virginia winter, much less Ohio winter. And so we got to go out to California winter. And even then it gets nippy on the porch. And that's where your best patio heater comes in. From the same wonderful people who bring you Best Hot Grill, Solar Infrared Grill, they bring you the best patio heater in the world. It really does work. It really does heat up a lot of space. Give it a look-see as well as the gas logs that they make, the beautiful, what do we call those things that you put, the balls? I forget what we call them.
Fireballs.
Fireballs? Are they called fireballs?
Yep.
Generalissimo made that up, Rhett, so if I'm wrong about that, it's Generalissimo's fault. They have beautiful fireballs for your fireplace as well. Just visit besthotgrill.com. Finally, as the Vice President and Mrs. Vance make their way to Israel, they're on their way to the Holy Land, to check in on the status of the ceasefire, which was broken by Hamas over the weekend. Israel stuck back. I want to remind you of the needs of the International Federation of Christians and Jews. The IFCJ has been at work for decades and decades. Give a listen to Al Eckstein tell you what it is that the IFCJ does.
The needs right now in Israel, as you could imagine, after being attacked and in war for 2 years, they're huge. I've never seen more people calling the fellowship and asking us to provide them with food. The fellowship has needed to open more soup kitchens during this war because so many people are suffering. Because I read the scriptures and God says, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, shelter the poor. And that's exactly what I see here. We need food and we need shelter.
You know, my audience has always stood with Israel before the war, during the war, and now that the war is in a ceasefire stage, finally, and we hope that Hamas does demilitarize, does leave, allows Gaza to prosper. That would be the wish of every kind-hearted Israeli I've ever met. They don't want to be at war. They're hoping for even a deal with Syria. They hope Hezbollah does not reconstitute. They hope Iran has been pummeled and grounded. But in the meantime, a lot of people have a lot of needs, and there's a banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. Your $5, your $10, your $25 donation matters. If you can do more, I thank you in advance for helping the people of Israel through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. The banner is at HughHewitt.com. It's Monday, and I usually end my Monday during football season with Doug Lesmerises, half of the Bill and Doug Show, which you can subscribe to at Substack at the Bill and Doug Show OSU. Substack.com. You can also listen to their podcasts, a few of them for free, but you won't get my favorite one, which is the Sunday Sound Off, which is really a lot of fun when Ohio State has as good a game as we did. But Mondays with Doug, we review who had the magic this weekend and who had the misery. Hello, Doug. Who had the magic?
I got to tell you, Hugh, college football, this new era, right? An expanded playoff, 12 teams get in. There's the transfer portal, players can move around. It's giving lots of teams, you wouldn't think, opportunity. Vanderbilt in the top 10 of the AP poll now for the first time since 1947. Hugh, Vanderbilt 6-1, beat LSU on Saturday, their first win over LSU since 1990. Last year they beat Alabama for the first time since 1984. Lots more teams who are just having a chance at success, and I think it's great for college football. Vanderbilt, Hugh, can you believe it?
Yeah, my buddy Rick Risser, it was my demo, and so he's my age, a little bit younger than I am, played defensive back at Vandy, and of course he's taken rafts of grief over the decade. He must be floating. I imagine every Vandy alum is already floating over this. Well, who's going to burst their bubble, Doug? They don't make the 12, do they? That's actually against the laws of physics, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, but if Indiana can do it, right? Indiana did it last year. Why can't Vanderbilt do it? It is this new era, and they've got some coming up. But I think, I don't think there's a great team in the SEC, and so I think there's opportunity. I do really think there's opportunity for a team like Vanderbilt. We'll see. Are they going to win out? No. But this is pretty real, and their quarterback struck a Heisman pose, Hugh. Diego Pagos struck a Heisman pose. So they're feeling it down there in Tennessee. Magic in the NFL, Colts are 6-1. The Colts were expected to win 7.5 games this year. They're 6-1. They have the best record in the NFL, Hugh. That's great for Indy.
Yeah, not so good for the Browns, but great for Indy, because I guess they'll win their division, so it doesn't matter to us. But tell me why. What made the difference for the Colts this year? Joe Flacco's gone. He's winning games for the Bengals.
I know. Well, they brought in Daniel Jones and some at quarterback, and he's just like doing okay. Like he's running the offense the way you need it to be run. You don't have to be spectacular when you do everything else. Then Shane Steichen, their head coach, he was calling plays for the Philadelphia Eagles a few years ago. He's a pretty good play caller, and they have a quarterback who can run the system they want to run, and it's working.
Now, let's move to misery in the NFL because I saw a lot of it. I don't know if the Dolphins fired their guy. Did they fire Dan?
No.
Did they already dump him?
Not yet. We're always on alert, right? It's Monday's firing day in both college football and the NFL, but no word yet on Mike McDaniel, the Miami head coach. But that was miserable for Miami, was it not? But great for the Browns. They scored some points. Defense got rolling.
We had a great game. I watched it after, and then I listened to the Sunday Shoutdown after what do we call it? The Sunday what? Shoutdown?
Sound off.
Sound off. That's it. 2 hours worth of great college football. Boy, Landis knows his football, and you ask good questions. Poor Tegra. Did he get benched yet? I mean, I'm pretty sure he's listening to that too.
Yeah, no, I know. It's hard. You got to be real with the fans, though. You got to tell the fans what's up.
Yes, you do.
Ohio State's off this week, so they have a week to kind of figure things out a little bit. So they're on a break, and then they get Penn State in 2 weeks. So they have some time to figure stuff out. Big misery, though. 3 undefeated teams lost over the weekend, Hugh, in college football. Miami, Ole Miss, and Texas Tech. Miami upset at home by Louisville. They were number 2 in the country. Only 6 of 136 teams undefeated still, Hugh. Shout out to Navy, Georgia Tech, BYU, Indiana, Ohio State, and Texas A&M. But the greatest misery was in the NFL. The New York Giants were ahead by 18 points with 6 minutes left and lost to the Denver Broncos. The NFL stats tell you that has never happened, that a team was up by as many as 18 points with as few as 6 minutes left and lost. They were ahead 19-0 entering the fourth quarter, Hugh. The New York Giants coasting to this huge upset, blew it.
That is like the Miami Redhawks in the Frozen Four about 10 years ago, being 2 goals up with a minute left, and they lost the game. Didn't even go to overtime. Doug Lemarie's, I want to go back to Indiana if I can. I know they're feeling magic in Bloomington. Is that real? Because I'm 69 years old, and in my 69 years, I got a lot of friends who went to IU. They've never been real. As far as I can remember, they've never been real.
It's like anything, Hugh. If you invest, you can keep it. Right. So their head coach, Curt Cignetti, when he got hired, this is his second year at Indiana. They went to the playoff last year. When he got hired, he was making $4 million a year. After they made the playoff last year, he was making $8 million a year. Now they're number 2 in the country. He got a raise to $11.6 million a year. He's the 3rd highest paid coach in college football behind 2 guys with national titles, Kirby Smart at Georgia, Ryan Day at Ohio State. That's an investment in the coach. It's an investment in making sure they have enough money to pay players, right? And Indiana is officially, right? Bob Knight, Indiana basketball, the great state of Indiana, Hoosiers, the movie Hoosiers, Larry Bird, right? It's a basketball state. Guess what? Indiana as a university, it's a football school now, Hugh. When you pay your coach $11.6 million, you're a football school.
Give me a little bit of misery. We're all over Pennsylvania. From Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, we have stations all over the Keystone State. They're all wondering where Penn State goes after the disaster that they've now had a shipwreck. Yeah. I'm worried about them coming to the shoe, but where do they go? Who do they hire? What happens to the defensive coordinator who left his cozy niche in Ohio and ended up in College Station?
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, it exploded. They lost to Iowa this week. Penn State is 0-4 in the Big Ten. It's unbelievable what has happened. They're going to go get a head coach. This is still a good job. Right? They would have won. That's why Curt Cignetti at Indiana got a raise, because you thought Penn State was going to come sniffing around. I think they have to go like away. It doesn't matter if you went to Penn State. It doesn't matter if you have Pennsylvania roots. Go get the best guy, right? So Mike Elko at Texas A&M, he's actually went to Penn, went to the University of Pennsylvania. People are kind of in on him a little bit. But I just think you need to go get somebody with creativity, with charisma, who can fire up that fan base, because Curt Cignetti's not from Indiana. He's just a great coach who went there and won. So don't worry. James Franklin did a great job there. He's from Pennsylvania. But don't worry about where you're from. Worry about what you can do. I do think Penn State should be able to get a really good coach.
Does Jim Knowles stay there? I mean, this is the weirdest thing. They went and they got the guy that Ryan Day went and got, and he still couldn't deliver a defense. So you have to move on?
Yeah. No, he'll be moving on. He's from Philly, but I think he'll be moving on from Penn State.
Doug Lesmerises, always good to talk to you. Follow him on X at Doug Lesmerises and go to the Bill and Doug Show OSU.substack.com. Listen to their free podcast wherever there are podcasts, the Bill and Doug Show, best football show around. Thank you, Doug Lesmerises. I do a little football on Monday because everybody's just getting back into their work week. They're driving home on the East Coast and they're thinking about it on the West Coast. And they do want to relive the wonders and the glories and the disappointments and the misery of football Saturday and Sunday in the fall, which makes everybody happy or miserable depending on what you're doing. I just have to say, though, I don't pretend to be a sports authority. I'm a homer, right? The Guardians and the Cavs and the Browns and the Buckeyes, that's it. I don't care about anybody else. When they leave, I don't, all I know is that, Generalissimo, are you still at work today?
As far as you know.
Yeah, I just don't think you should have let Ohtani get away. That's all I know.
Oh, I've thought of that. Several times I've thought of that.
Yeah, I just thought when a guy gets 10 Ks and hits 3 home runs in a game, maybe you ought to have paid him whatever it took.
We offered him that kind of money. He didn't want it because he wanted to win.
Well, then you should have signed some other free agents.
We should have signed about 14 pitchers is what we should have done.
Just ask the Guardians. They are the pitching factory. We have six-man starting rotation next year, and we're making the playoffs.
All we had left was the translator, and he's not worth much right now.
No, he's not. But I do want to explain to people the reason I have Doug on, and the reason we talk a little bit of sports is that it's the universal solvent. The best client development guy I ever met in the business of law always said, talk sports to people first, and you'll find some common ground no matter who they are. You'll find out, and there are a few people who lack the sports ball gene. One of them is Kurt Schlichter. I don't know what would happen if we put Kurt Schlichter and Doug Lesmerises together in a room. It might implode. A vacuum might erupt because they have like zero in common. But I like to go over it, and I have two things to say. The Browns won yesterday, so their season's not over. They're 2-5, and they look pretty good. And they turned Q loose, and Judkins is a machine just like Nick Chubb used to be. So keep your eye on Cleveland. Dylan Gabriel's looking like he can run a very competent offense. Just keep an eye. But the thing I want to tell you about is the Heisman. It's going to go to Julian Sand if there's fairness in college football. Julian is remarkable. Now he looks like he's 16. He takes his helmet off, and I think, how can this kid throw that ball? How can he hit Carnell Tate? How can he hit Jeremiah Smith? How can he run that offense? How can he have that much in that young head? The Buckeyes are a machine, and if they don't, it's really unfair to say the expectation is back-to-back national titles. This isn't Nick Saban's Alabama era. It's the new era of NIL. But boy, Julian Sand looked like, I'm just saying about saying Heisman. Start thinking Heisman because he deserves it.